The Cuyahoga County Operations and Intergovernmental Relations Committee meeting for Tuesday, March 31st, 2015 will please come to order, and the clerk will call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Simon.
Here.
Mr. Brady.
Here.
Mr. Germana. Mr. Germana is absent. Mr. Greenspan. Mr. Greenspan is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Has anybody signed in for public comment related to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair. No one has signed in.
Thank you very much. The next item is the approval of the minutes from the February 17th, 2015 meeting. Those minutes are in your packet, and I would ask for a motion to approve those minutes. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. It was moved by Ms. Simon, seconded by the council president. And we'll move on to item number 5, matters referred to committee. And the first one is 2015-0004.
Ordinance 2015-0004, an ordinance establishing the process by which county officers or employees serving on public bodies may designate alternatives to serve in their stead, and declaring the necessity that this ordinance become immediately effective.
Okay, this is the council president's legislation. Do you want to make any comment before we call up Mike to talk about the changes?
No. We'll just let Mike.
Okay. Okay, Mr. King, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael King, council staff. Just as a reminder to the committee, this legislation would permit members of county public bodies to designate alternates to serve in their place unless there is another procedure or prohibition provided for by law or by the bylaws of the body itself. There is a proposed substitute in your packet here today, sponsored by Councilman Miller. And the primary change here would be it would explicitly require the alternates to hold any residency, professional background license, or county employment requirements that their principal is required to hold. And I defer to Chairman Miller if he had anything further to add.
Okay. I have no further comment. I will make a motion to accept the substitute as the version of 2015-0004 in front of this committee. Is there a second? Okay. Any further discussion? The substitute was discussed with the sponsor, and he approved. And if there is no further discussion, I would entertain a motion to refer the ordinance to the full council for second reading. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. It is so recommended, and to the clerk, I would like to have my name added as a co-sponsor, if I could, please. Thank you. Okay, so that one's approved, and we're going to go on to ordinance 2015-0005.
Ordinance 2015-0005, an ordinance enacting section 206.12 of the Cuyahoga County Code to specify the county's representation on the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission and declaring the necessity that this ordinance become immediately effective.
Ms. Simon.
Thank you very much. This ordinance is before us as a result of the law department reviewing the way in which the composition of this body is comprised. And we were told, based on the review from the law department, that County Council has 2 appointments to this board, and this clarifies what the law department has advised us and is consistent with the reading of ORC and the code. So I sponsored this just to have that clarification.
Okay, Thank you very much. There is a substitute with some technical correction. If you could explain the substitute for us.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. The proposed substitute in this packet, simply provides that, in relation to the ordinance that was just referred out, the members of the Planning Commission may designate their own alternates, and that's in accordance with the process for how alternates are designated on behalf of boards of county commissioners under the Ohio Revised Code. So the original ordinance would provide that the president of council would make those designation of alternates. This would make it more in line with what the revised code has to say, and allow the members themselves to designate their own alternates.
Are there any questions on the proposed substitute?
Fortunately not.
Okay. Ms. Simon, would you like to offer a motion to substitute?
Yes.
Okay.
So move to substitute this ordinance with the substitute before us, which reference what Mike King just said with regard to our own appointment of a delegate.
Okay, and I will second that motion. I will ask if there's any further discussion. Hearing none, the question is on whether to substitute for ordinance 2015-0005. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay. Would you like to make a motion to refer the legislation as substituted to the full council for second reading?
Yes, so
Okay.
moved.
And I will second that as well. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The ayes have it. The resolution is recommended to the full council. I would like to have my name added as a co-sponsor if I could, please. Okay, and we're going to go on to ordinance 2014-0031.
Ordinance 2014-0031, an ordinance amending the county's debarment law to clarify that the period of debarment under Chapter 505 of the Cuyahoga County Code commences from the date of issuance of the debarment, and declaring the necessity that this ordinance become immediately effective.
Ms. Simon.
Thank you very much. This ordinance actually provides clarification on what the Debarment Board can and can't do with regard to modifying the debarment periods. This actually specifies and codifies that the board itself has the ability to modify the period of time for debarment. It's not retroactive but prospective, and we just needed some clarity based upon some prior debarment hearings, as well as we added a 30-day period of time in which the company or person who's being debarred can present evidence to the board and be able to present their case and have actual documentation submitted to the board. The debarment board itself reviewed these changes, and we concurred that this would be appropriate and fair and provide actually due process to the potential debarred third party. So I recommend that we move forward with this, and it's just clarification and provide some due process.
Do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chair. Councilwoman Simon, I think, summarized it quite well.
Is there any further discussion? I would just comment that I think this is a very meaningful improvement, and I would commend Ms. Simon. This took a fair amount of thinking and discussing and interacting and going back and forth, and I just want to commend you for the amount of work done.
And the board.
Yes.
I think the board is very diligent and conscientious and takes this seriously, and so they've put a lot of work into it, and there's some further clarification that will come into the actual rules and procedures that will impact the debarment board as well. So,
Ms. Simon, would you like to offer a motion to substitute?
I will move to substitute this ordinance with what ordinances? substitute 2014-0031.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to substitute. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Substitute is now the version before the committee. And is there a motion to refer the ordinance to the full council for second reading? Okay, it's been moved. Seconded, okay. Any further discussion?
Just one thing. Do you think we've got enough room up here?
I think we do.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm a little
Okay.
claustrophobic.
Okay.
I thought my name was on here, Madam Clerk? On the substitute, okay. Make sure.
Yes, it's
Goes where it
the
needs to go.
substitute is sponsored by the county executive. It's co-sponsored by Councilmember Simon, and I would also like my name added, please. Okay. So without any further discussion, the motion is to refer ordinance 2014-0031 to the full council for second reading. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and ordinance 2014-0031 has been referred to the full council, and we are able to move out 3 pieces of legislation that were hanging around for a little while, so that's a good thing. So now our next item on the agenda is the semi-annual presentation of the Agency of Inspector General's semi-annual report. And before I call up Andrea Nelson Moore to make the presentation, I would like to introduce Mark Griffin, who is just going to give us about a 60-second teaser before an introduction before the confirmation hearing. And so please proceed.
Council President Brady, and Councilman Simon as well. I appreciate the chance to come and just to say hello before my confirmation hearing as Inspector General on April 14th. For me, it's been a long road to come here today. 28 years ago, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa. And then I went from that to the Kennedy School of Government to study public policy, to go into public service. And somehow along the way, I lost my way to go to law school and practice in private law. But my love has always been public service. And for me to sit here today and stand here today before you is something I've wanted to do for a long time. In my 50 years, having been born and raised in Cleveland, the most dramatic change in our government is right here today. It's the change that we made 4 years ago to change our county government. And because of it, because of this council and because of the county executive, I think Cleveland has turned a corner. And a part of that reorganization was the creation of the Inspector General position. I think it's critical to restoring trust, to restoring openness, and to keeping our momentum going here. So I'm very excited to be the nominee, to be the next Inspector General. I'm looking forward to Interim Inspector General Nelson Moore's comments today. I will close simply by saying they've done a lot of great work, and we hope to continue that. So with that, I'd like to say thank you again. I look forward to meeting with you on April 14th at the confirmation hearing. But more important than that, I look forward to working with all of you as we keep our county going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming down. And now I will ask Ms. Nelson Moore to present to us the semi-annual County Inspector General's report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Andrea Nelson Moore on behalf of the Agency of Inspector General. I believe each one of you have a copy of our most recent semi-annual report, or you have at least had an opportunity to review it. And over the next few moments, I will review the report with you. Section 1, which begins on page 5, provides an introduction, an overview of an IG, or an Inspector General, and a historical framework for our agency. This section also includes a discussion of the county ethics ordinance as well as the county debarment ordinance. This is all the same information that's been provided in all of the previous reports. Section 2, which begins on page 18, details a more high-level overview of the Agency of Inspector General, including but not limited to the agency's responsibilities, qualifications of an Inspector General, the agency's budget, as well as information regarding the agency's website. During the reporting cycle of this semi-annual report, the agency had 8 staff members. 3 were licensed attorneys. 1 is a former police officer who is now a certified investigator, 1 certified fraud examiner, 1 certified paralegal, an executive assistant, as well as an administrative assistant. In section 3 on page 28, there is information highlighted regarding our investigations. From July 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2014, the office received 141 new complaints. This information is found on page 36 of the report. Also on page 36 is a chart that details the source of complaints. Again, as in previous reporting cycles, the majority, meaning over 50% of the complaints, were received from members of the public. The pie chart on page 37 details the methods by which the complaints were received. As with prior years, the website was, again, the most utilized method of complaint receipt. On page 38, there's a graph of complaints by departments. Of the departments within the agency's jurisdiction, like the first half of 2014, Health and Human Services, Employment and Family Services received the most complaints this reporting cycle. On page 39, there is a graph showing the nature and subject of the complaints. On page 40, of the 141 new complaints received in this reporting cycle, a total of 101 were declined for full investigation for various reasons, including lack of jurisdiction, lack of information, or if the former Inspector General determined that a management referral would best address the complaint. Of the remaining 40 complaints, the agency initiated investigations of 18. The agency completed 3 management inquiries, and at the time of the report, the inquiries were still pending. 1 was reviewed for debarment or suspension, and 18 remained pending in the triage phase. In addition to the 18 newly initiated investigations received during this reporting cycle, 7 additional investigations were initiated on the AIG's own initiative, and we also had 58 pending carryover investigations from the first half of 2014, which brought our total number of active investigations to 83. On page 41, there is a pie chart detailing the nature of the new cases investigated in the second half of the year. Pages 42 and 43 show charts and graphs of the sources of complaints investigated and the departments impacted by those investigations. 54% of the complaints were received from county employees, 25% from unknown sources, 17% from the public, and 4% from the AIG. In the last reporting cycle, Health and Human Services Office of Child Support had the most complaints investigated. However, in this most recent reporting cycle, Employment and Family Service had the most complaints investigated. During the last 6 months of 2014, the AIG closed 21 of our pending investigations. Page 44 shows a chart that gives you the findings or dispositions of those 21 cases that were closed in this reporting cycle. Included towards the end of section 3, beginning on page 45, you'll see summaries of the investigations completed during this cycle. Copies of entire investigations are available on the AIG website, notwithstanding the investigations that were completed pursuant to the Memorandum of Understanding that was executed between the AIG and Health and Human Services, Employment and Family Services. Beginning on page 52, we included status updates on previously reported investigations, while on page 54, you'll see an update on a complaint that was referred to the Sheriff's Department for review, which resulted in the subsequent conviction of a former county employee, Mac Warren, for illegal use of food stamps. Warren was subsequently sentenced to 5 years probation in order to pay restitution in amount of $1,525.60. Because the AIG is also the chief ethics investigator for the county, as a practical matter, the AIG investigates allegations of wrongdoing under the ethics ordinance and enforces the ethics ordinance. Section 4 of the semi-annual report begins on page 55 and details the activities of the agency regarding ethics compliance for the second half of 2014. Page 58 highlights the agency's ethics statistics. And in this reporting cycle, the AIG received and responded to a total of 640 ethics inquiries. 622 were secondary employment disclosure forms. 5 opinions were regarding gifts, travel, and dining. 6 opinions were regarding conflicts of interest and duty to recuse. 2 were regarding prohibited political activity. 1 was on boards, commissions, and advisory board appointments. 3 secondary employment opinions were issued, and 1 opinion on the misuse of official position. And as you will see, a brief synopsis of each of these ethics opinions were rendered on during this reporting cycle, and it begins on page 59. The agency's activities regarding contractors and lobbyists begin on page 65. As this body is aware, all contractors and lobbyists who do business with the county or seek to do business with the county must register with the AIG. As of December 31st, 2014, 3,319 contractors were registered and 12 lobbyists were registered with the agency. The current list of registered contractors and lobbyists is posted on the AIG's website and is updated daily. The AIG continues to offer online training for all contractors and lobbyists, and the contractors and lobbyists view the presentation and take an online quiz. A passing score is required for registration. The agency continued to conduct debarment pre-screenings of all vendors as part of our contractor due diligence this reporting cycle, and to date, the AIG has assisted in collecting $13,943.99 in court costs, delinquent property taxes, state taxes, and or county judgment liens. The debarment law section of the report begins on page 67. The actual debarment statistics begin on page 68. And as of June 30th, 2014, the AIG had 19 active debarment matters open. During the most recent reporting cycle, the AIG initiated 2 additional cases for debarment review, which brought our active debarment matters to 21. Of the 21 cases, the AIG determined not to debar 4 contractors, 2 contractors were suspended, and 1 contractor was debarred for 5 years. Also, as you all are likely aware, on December 12th of 2013, the Debarment Review Board established a debarment appeal process for contractors debarred by the AIG. During this reporting cycle, there was 1 contractor who appealed his debarment to the Debarment Review Board. And on October 6th of 2014, the Debarment Review Board upheld the AIG's decision to debar the contractor for 5 years. However, the review board modified the contractor's debarment cycle such that the cycle commenced on the day of the triggering event, which in this case was the contractor's conviction date. Beginning on page 72, you'll see other activity the agency had listed. In an effort to detect and deter fraud, waste, and abuse, the AIG is charged with undertaking a number of reviews of county operations. In this reporting cycle, the AIG completed 2 different reviews, the driver's license review as well as the Cleveland Browns parking review. Pursuant to the vehicle use policy, the AIG is required to conduct a review of all county employees who either drive a county vehicle or drive their own vehicle in the course of their official duties no less than twice a year. The AIG did narrow the number of potential violations under the county vehicle use policy to 63 employees, and we're currently waiting on responses from the respective departments to confirm the violations. The agency anticipates the actual violation statistics will be provided in the next upcoming semi-annual report. The AIG also reviewed the Cleveland Browns parking review during the 10 Cleveland Browns home games, and as a consequence, one county sheriff's department employee was issued a letter of admonition for improperly parking during a Cleveland Browns during the Cleveland Browns game. In addition to the 2 reviews, the AIG also responded to 29 public records requests. On page 72, there's a chart that delineates the sources of the public records requests, and it essentially shows that there were 12 from the media, 10 from the public, 1 from county council, and 6 from current county employees. The AIG also sent out a secondary employment mailing during this reporting cycle. On August 21st, 2014, the AIG issued an advisory opinion to provide an explanation to public officials and county employees of their duty to disclose secondary employment. And in the opinion, the AIG interpreted the terms compensated employment or private business activity of the public official or employee outside of the primary employment with the county to include any form of non-county work, service, or activities any form of non-county work, services, or activities by a county public official or employee in exchange for compensation or for the primary purpose of earning or otherwise obtaining money. The agency also included some examples of secondary employment in this opinion to give a better idea of what may potentially fall under the definition of secondary employment. The agency, as it has done in the prior years, also sent a reminder letter at the start of the holiday season to county employees and officials, reminding them of restrictions associated with secondary employment. For county employees who had access to emails, the letter was sent via email, and for those who don't have access to email, the letter was actually mailed to them. And you may recall Ms. Bird and I both appeared before this committee back in December of 2014 to address questions regarding the secondary employment advisory opinion that was issued during this reporting cycle. At this time, that essentially concludes my presentation, and I'm open to field any questions.
Thank you very much for your report, and thank you also for your service to Cuyahoga County during the interim time.
Thank you for providing me with that opportunity.
It's not an easy thing to do, so we appreciate your help in keeping things running. Are there questions by my colleagues?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions. I'll take the packet. It looks it's quite interesting. We've been talking about this office obviously off and on for about 4 years, and since we have the likely inevitably the next Inspector General, I believe, in the room also, it's just I think one of the concerns that the council has is that there's just sort of a basic common sense kind of a test to some of these things, and so, for instance, the amount of time checking to see if someone had parked in the garage during a football game, and what you came up with one person or something. I think that's what I heard, and it just doesn't seem to be a good use of time for this office. Just as an example, which is not fair for me to pick out one little thing like that, because that's not what I mean to do. I just want to say that, so thank you very much for your service. We look forward to working with this office in the next several years, as I think we continue to try to define it and what it is and what may be what it isn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
Ms. Simon.
Thank you very much for all the work you've done. I know how busy you've been with this office, and I just want to reiterate Councilman Brady's observation about this office. I mean, we came in as a new government and, created this office and had some lengthy discussions ongoing about its purpose, its scope, the importance of the office, but how it needs to be balanced. And one thing that popped out at me was around the holidays with the emails that went out about maybe selling candles or things like that as secondary employment. I think that was what my attention went to, and is that really what we anticipated when we created the office? Just looking at those types of things, I just wanted to mention that. So we're going to be reviewing this ongoing and appreciate everything that's been done. In terms of your packet, more importantly, you have our old map of the county districts, so that can be updated.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And to Ms. Moore, you mentioned about that a significant number of cases were not taken up by the IG's office and instead were a management referral. Does that mean that it was referred to HR as a possible personnel matter? Is that what that means, or does that mean something else?
No, it means something else. Management referrals doesn't necessarily mean it goes to HR as a personnel issue. There could be a referral to the actual department if that's something that the department typically handles. Mm-hmm. So there could be a referral back to, let's say, the Office of Child Support or Employment and Family Services for some issues such as poor customer service and things of that nature. So we refer that to those particular departments.
Understood. Okay. And can you tell me how many contractors are currently debarred?
The last I checked, I believe there are 36.
36, okay. And you mentioned 2 cases during the reporting period in which a contractor was suspended rather than debarred. Could you refresh our memory on what kind of circumstances would lead to a contractor being suspended rather than being debarred, and what suspension means, and whether a contractor would probably then be debarred, or is the suspension all that occurs? Can you explain what that means?
Sure. Under the debarment ordinance, there is a section which permits contractors to be debarred if they are debarred elsewhere, so if they're debarred by some other entity. And what our office does is we take a look at various other entities, the auditors, the City of Cleveland, and if a contractor is mentioned and they are a registered contractor with us, the debarment code permits the AIG to suspend that particular entity for, I believe it's no more than a year. And then the suspension would either fall off unless one of the other enumerated grounds for debarment is available. And my understanding of the code as it is written, if the AIG is moving in the direction of debarring the actual entity for a period of 5, 3, or 18 months, then that suspension period will be subsumed into the debarment period. So it would not, my understanding is that it's not to be on top of the suspension period.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Okay. And my final question is, the last I heard that the monies that were received when contractors come in and do their ethics registration and any other fees related to the Office of Inspector General are that hasn't been spent. Is that still correct? And if so, how much money currently sits in that fund?
Oh, wow. Okay, that is correct. The money thus far has not been spent. It's my understanding that those funds can only be utilized for specific purposes, and typically those purposes have to be somehow related to the debarment process or contractors. So what the former IG had initially requested, it was that some of the funds be moved to permit the agency to hire a person who would focus on helping us complete the contractor due diligence. So it would be a part-time position. So those funds were set aside. However, in the transition period, we were unable to bring the new person on. So the funds still are sitting there. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but I do know back, I believe in January, there was over $186,000 there, but I'm not sure if that figure has gone up. I would suspect that it has. Can I get back to you or provide the actual amount?
That would be appreciated.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Sure. Just a quick question on debarment. Are there any contractors in the pipe coming up anymore that are being investigated for debarment?
Yes, we actually have, let's see, since the beginning of this year, there have been 3 that have been issued notice of debarments, and we've also initiated 3, but that does not take into account the pending or the remaining 14, so we had at least 14 coming into this year, and there are some that we are working diligently to move through the process. So there are some that could be potentially debarred.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you know of the ones that have been debarred? What date is it that the first one would come off of debarment?
Offhand, I do not know because they vary for time periods. Some are for 5 years, some are for 3. And I can see the list in my head, but specific dates I don't have to know when they would come off.
Could you get that for me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, we thank you very much for presenting the report and filling in on behalf of the county.
Thank you.
Okay. That concludes what is specifically on our agenda. It's not listed on the agenda, but I would ask if my colleagues have any miscellaneous business. I don't see any. Has anybody signed in for public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Okay, and in that case, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? Thank you very much, everybody.